What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, I want to work on wastegate placement. All right, everybody, this is the wastegate that I decided to choose. It's a low buck wastegate. It didn't cost much. I want to say it was right up under $100. This is a 50 millimeter gate. That's what I decided to use for my project. Normally when you use a twin scroll setup, so what I mean by twin scroll is the flange is divided, the turbo's divided. So you got the pipe on the driver's side and you got a pipe on the passenger side. They're divided all the way up to the turbo. Normally you do twin wastegates, like twin 44s, twin 38s maybe. And that's exactly what I had on my last setup. But one of the few things that people don't talk about, mainly in the S chassis community, or maybe it was just me, was the fact that there ain't too much room in the 240 engine bay to be putting two wastegates. I mean, obviously this chassis is designed for a 4-cylinder, not a V8, so room is limited. And even the turbo kit the CX Racing sells, one of the wastegates is right up underneath the passenger side header, meaning that if you ever want to change out the spring, I mean, basically you got to take the turbo and all that stuff off. So with that being said, I didn't want to go through that anymore. I want to have easy access to my wastegate if I do want to change a spring or service it or anything like that. So the location of choice that we're choosing on this build is right there. If you already seen one of my videos from before, I mentioned that this is kind of the general area where I wanted my wastegate. I think with my wastegate being right here, I don't have to move my fuse box, and not to mention that it'll be easy to be serviced. I'm trying to do what I've always wanted to do, which is be loud. I want some attention. I want, when people see this car, they flock to it. So the 50 millimeter wastegate has a 2-inch outlet and a 2-inch inlet. So what we end up doing is getting a 2-inch stainless manual U-bend. And what we're gonna end up doing with this deal here is I want to cut it this way. The reason I want to cut it this way is when the flow comes through the turbo, I want this wastegate to get priority of flow. So instead of just cutting it like right there, for example, and weld it on there like a T, I wanted to have more like a gradual flow going to this valve here. So in order to get the cut that I want, I'm gonna make 2 cuts. I'm gonna cut it in half, and then I'm gonna turn it around, put it in a bandsaw, and then I'm gonna cut it at this angle right here. Also want to add too, if you want to ever get that like slash cut look, like for a wastegate tip or a downpipe exit or something like that, that's exactly how you do it. So now that we cut that pipe out, as you can tell, what we cut is flat, and obviously this turbine housing is round. I know I'm gonna have to cut a groove on the top, but I may not even have to cut anything out the bottom, and then just slide it down. And then of course I'm gonna have to make a cut here. Whoa. Looks like I gotta trim a little bit off the ears. When I say the ears, I'm talking about this outer edge, this edge, and then that edge. You gotta grind a little material off of it. But that ain't too bad for the first cut. Not too bad. I decided to move that fuse box, and I've kind of coated that almost just right. So I think what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna go ahead and tack the V-band to the straight section of that piece of 2-inch pipe. That way I can get a better idea of where I want to cut this hole in this turbine housing. my mark. Can you see it? Yep. So now I gotta cut that out. But I gotta figure out what I'm gonna use to cut it out. I don't have the 2-inch hole saw. So I don't know, we'll figure it out. Matter of fact, I want to go ahead and weld this first. All right, everybody, so now that we got this thing marked, it's time to separate the turbine housing from the center section and the compressor housing. Last time I had to use two interior piece tools to separate this thing. So real quick, as far as the 3 hole saws I have here at the house, I have a 2 1/8. I think this is a 2 1/8, and it's a bimetal hole saw blade. From watching a bunch of people do this stuff, they usually go through quite a few of these, but I'm gonna see what happens today. And again, for the 50 millimeter wastegate, we're using a 2-inch pipe, and this thing right here slides like right over it. That might actually help us out a little bit if I make this hole just a little bit bigger and then slide this in, and then I can kind of tilt it. With that being said, I probably didn't even need to do all that. Actually, I changed my mind. I got an 1 3/4 inch. I think I'd rather have that sit on the outside instead of putting it on the inside of the hole. So we're gonna go a little bit smaller, and then if we need to open it up more, which I'm sure we will, I think I'll do that with the carbide bit, which is right here. Hey, and if you ain't got one of these centering punches in the garage, it's a good idea to do one, especially if you do a bunch of drilling. I can see daylight on the other side, so I'm gonna see if I can tap it with a hammer and a punch. So this piece right here is held on by the divider in the back of there. So I think what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to use this. Maybe I can cut like an X in it and then tap it with the hammer and a punch. We'll see. There you have it, folks. Hole is drilled. There it is. I have to say that since this is a China turbo, it wasn't too bad to drill through it, to be honest with you. I mean, you can look at it, it's like a cast material. It's definitely not stainless. Matter of fact, let's see if it is stainless. it's on. Yep, it's definitely not stainless. But real quick, maybe this will help somebody out in the future. What I ended up having to do is I ended up having to drill holes in the middle. So as you can tell, I ended up having to drill holes down the middle, which are basically breaking in half. And I used my flat punch and my 2.5 pound hammer. I hammered it on this side, it dented it in, fell through the bottom, did the same thing on that side. And it looks like I drilled a little bit off centered. I mean, I had the drill lined up. I don't know if you can tell, but it's got like this little crease right here. I tried to use that as a reference mark, but it looked like that at some point it kind of shifted to that side. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in here with my carbide bit, I'm gonna smooth all that out, but I'm gonna take a little bit more material off on this side to kind of make that opening, you know, somewhat close to that side. So let's go ahead and get that carbide bit and knock that out. All right, everybody. I tried to smooth this transition out as much as I could possible. Try to clean it up, try to remove a little more material on this side than that side. But I think that's as good as it's gonna get. With that circle, with that hole saw, as you can tell, it cut a groove there, and then the drill bit kind of made that section look nasty. I'm going to attempt to use that FUPA, the BBW FUPA cup, so I can extend my tungsten out real far, and I'm gonna attempt to try to fill that in with some like 309 rod, I believe. Maybe I could build that section up, and then this whole section right here look like one piece. I'm going to attempt. And about 2 hours later, after grinding and welding all that stuff up, it didn't come out too bad. So I probably run in there with a carbide bit, but I'm also gonna do something else. Let me show you. So as you can tell, this whole section is divided, and it's supposed to be divided going into the wastegate, or at least into the wastegate elbow. And if you can tell, there's like a recessed section. So I want this thing to kind of come up at least flush or a little bit past it. So I got a piece of steel, I want to say it's 1/4 inch. I've kind of rounded off the edges so it can have the same contour. It's right here. All I gotta do is clean that up and weld that into place. And then we could go ahead and install this. Go. That's the finished product. That brown section right there is a spot where I guess I didn't clean it as good. I didn't think about the fact that I wanted to weld the edges also. It was pretty hard to daggone do this with that limited amount of space, but I'm so glad that I got that BBW Ferret cup. So I may go in there and smooth a little bit of that out. But besides that, that looks pretty daggone good. I'm pretty satisfied with that. So like I said, I'll hit it with the carbide bit, and then we can go ahead and install the wastegate elbow. right, guys, before I slap this thing back together, what I wanted to do is I wanted to separate this, and I wanted to rotate this lower half because when it's installed, this is pointing towards the hood. So basically I want to see if I can rotate it 180 degrees. Also, I need to remove this anyways because this kit came with 2 springs. I got to go back and look at which spring is which, but I definitely, of course, want to run the lower of the 2 springs so I can also compress and see which one is the stronger spring. This one, the shorter one, feel like it's stronger, so I think I'm gonna use this one first. I can fit an Allen wrench in there, so what I'm gonna attempt to do is take all 3 of them out and then rotate this whole bottom section a third of a degree. Anyways, I'm gonna rotate this thing. Hey guys, I also wanted to add too that I added a brace in there. That wastegate's kind of hanging kind of far off that turbine housing. And back in the day, back when Fast and the Furious was popping off, I had an Integra with a turbo, and I always had issues with the manifold cracking because the turbo was sitting so far away from the head. And then what made me decide to get rid of that car was the fact that one day I was driving and the wastegate fell off. Yeah, it's kind of a known fact that when wastegates kind of hang off kind of far, that all that vibration, all that heat and stuff, usually stuff will crack right there, or sometimes they'll crack right there at the flange. So I went a step further and made me a brace. I had a piece of stainless from Metal Supermarkets, which is local to us. So I say, you know what, let me go ahead and do this now before this joker crack and I regret it in the future. I'm probably done for the night. I'm trying to go get some ice cream, but when we cut you back on, we'll probably go ahead and install this. We may make the screamer pipe, or I may just go ahead and jump over to the starting on the down pipe. I don't know yet, but regardless, I'm gonna record it and you guys are gonna be there. So in the meantime, I'll check you later. See you on the next episode.